Hey there guys, I'm Clement again from the Graphic Technologies, and this is my 8th video on my HTML and CSS tutorial. If you were with me in the previous video, we talked extensively about HTML forms. We did a lot and we covered a lot of concepts and best practices. And there's something I may have failed to mention as well, that I didn't stress enough rather. This name attribute is mandatory for each input element. It must be there because if a name element is not specified there, it won't be able to submit these data entered by the user to retrieve data or post data to the server. That may sound like a lot now, but just take it like the name element is very important so the server side can be able to do the job of posting these data, of submitting this data to the server. Now, on that note, that will bring me to the topic of the day, which is these attributes, the action attribute and the method attribute. Now, what are they for? I'll first start with the action attribute. Now, the action attribute actually specifies the PHP or any other server-side language page. It specifies the page that the form will be submitted to, the server that is handling this page, this submissions rather. Well, I'm going to just write an example like action.php. This doesn't really exist, it's just an example. It won't post to anywhere. If I save this, or no, I won't run it now, but I'll run it later. But if you see this action.php in the action attribute is actually a file that runs PHP. And this PHP handles the submission of the user data. That is right here. To either post data to the server it's connected to or get data from the server based on the user submissions. Now, that brings me to the method. So, the method in HTML takes in either a get in capital letters or a post method. Get and post method are HTTP requests. You don't really need to know much about that right now, but the get method is used to retrieve data from the server that action.php connects to, and post is used to post these data to the server that action.php connects to. It may seem like a lot right now, but don't worry, we're not going to dwell much on this. Anyway, this causes a HTML and CSS course. PHP is not within the scope of this course, so we won't really talk much about this, but just to get the whole purpose of the form that forms an integral part of HTML as a whole, the action and the method. If these are not specified, you can do very little with your work. Or if you're using some JavaScript backend, like maybe Node.js, you may not really need to specify the method, or React rather, but don't worry, I won't get into that. I'll just leave it as this, that this method attribute is used to specify whether or not you're going to post or get data from the server, and this action attribute connects your form to the server page named action.php. So if I put post, if I save this and I run it, and I come here, enter my name, Clement, I select Clement, select Benedict and Clement, and I click on sign up. Let me open the page. I click on sign up. You'll see that we get your file was not found, and you see that appended to the file is action.php. at this point, our form is meant to send the now post request to action.php to post our data over there. But since it's not a PHP course, we won't be doing that. And that is fine. All you have to do is understand the whole principle between get and post. And if I change this to get, change to get, and I go back and I reload my page, or let me save the document, reload the page, write my name, Clement, take this, or anyone, and I click on sign up. You see, I get a lot of things appended to my action.php, and these things are called query strings that links our name value that we set for our type input text to Clement, student name, which was from our radio button, to Benedict, and my test score to 50, which was for our checkbox, if I am not mistaken. Yes. So you can see the difference between the get and the post method. Get attaches these query strings to our link, and these query strings are used by our server side to retrieve some data about, well, anything. But the post is used to just and only just to post data to the server. So that is all we'll cover about method and action. I won't go any further, but before I end this video, I'm going to show you some extra really cool HTML5 forms, input elements rather. One really cool one is select. This select is used to create a list of elements to select from in the input. And this select, it takes a name as expected. I can call it movies. And if I close this tag, it actually takes in a closing tag. And inside the select, now this is very important, takes in an option. Takes in an option element that also takes value as an attribute. And this value is very important as well. And I can enter a value saying Batman. I can come here and write Batman so the user can see what the value is. Come here again and say option value Avengers. I am a big DC and Marvel fan, so do not mind me. This is another option. Then let me write a third option again, value. And I can say Wonder Woman, my value. And I call here Wonder Woman. And I close my option tag. Now we have a selection of movies that contain Batman, Avengers, and Wonder Woman. Now let us save this and let's reload the page. Now you can see that this select tag has been selected here, and it starts by default with the first. And if I click on the direction pointing down, you can see that our other selections are here. And if I click on one, it changes to the one I clicked on, to the option I clicked on. The name changes. So this is the select tag. Select also holds another attribute called size to indicate the size and the number of elements that should show at a time. If I put 2 and I reload the page, I should get 2 elements being shown at a time. And I should be able to scroll down to select any one of my choice. Now, that is all I can tell you right now about the select element, the selection of a certain type of element, be it movies or cars or whatever, that takes in options of these types of selections. And that is just the select input tag. There's another one called the text area. And this text area takes in a lot of attributes. It takes in the name attribute, which is very important. I can call this a message. ID, also important. I can call this message as well. Then the column and the rows is used to dictate the size of this text area. And the text area really is something like if you want a message, you want to create a white space for the user to type a sort of message, maybe going to the owner of the website or whatever, it doesn't really matter, but just so the user can type a huge amount of message. It's usually recommended that the user uses a text area instead of a basic text type input. So this values of, let's just save this and let's see what we get. If I save this and I reload, you see that I have my big text box here, and I can write as many things as I want. I am a lover of movies and programming, if I knew how to spell. Okay, so that is, we can adjust the column. The column indicates the height of this. I can call it a very huge number like 100. If I save this and I reload, oh, rather the column is for the width, pardon me. The columns indicates the width and the rows indicates the height. Just like a regular Excel sheet, if you're familiar with that. So if I take this to 10, let me take this to 1,000 for example, and I save and I reload, you see I get a really long text area, which is really not ideal. The best type is, I think, is 30 by 20, or it can be to any size you really want anyway. So I think maybe 50 sometimes will do. It doesn't really matter, it depends on you. We can type, I think it also takes in placeholder. As I mentioned placeholder before, nearly every single input tag takes a placeholder, apart from the submit and the maybe select. So give a placeholder of please send your message, or enter your message here. If I save this and I run it, you see we have a placeholder, please enter your message here. Now I know you've noticed all these forms seem very scattered and not arranged and not really fine if you ask me. This can all be changed with CSS. We'll get to that very soon, be patient. Okay, well, that is text area. One final one I want to show you before I direct you to the resource to get all of these is a really cool one called the date type, the date input type. And I'm just going to write it here. Input of type date. And as the name implies, it's used for dates, to prompt the user to enter a date like date of birth or date of graduation or date of anything really. And we can call this your date. As I said, the name is very important when it comes to submission to the server. And if I close my input tag, then I can save this and I run it. You can see we have a date element here. This is it. And if I click on the drop down, you see we have a really fancy HTML5 date drop down, and we can select whatever date. Date of birth can go up. It's just to create a really understandable user interface. You can come here, date of birth, you can type 12th of February 96, which is my birth date. And you can see, oh, it's the other way around, pardon me. It's month, date, then February 96. Alright, 12th. So, in this tutorial we've covered quite a lot. But before I end this, I just want to show you that you can actually get distinct and even more examples of HTML forms from w3schools.com. Go to w3schools.com. You can see that they have a whole myriad of documentation on HTML and CSS. You can go to HTML and you can even go to whatever, and just for the sake of practice, you can go to HTML forms. You can see different examples, different usages. You can try it yourself. You can do a lot of things really. And there's another thing, there are some things I didn't mention because of the time of this video, but you can go here and get so many resources, and I have already set the background for your understanding. So anything you see here wouldn't be super new. It'll just be an appending to your knowledge, and I strongly encourage it. And also, each time I do this session, I always encourage my viewers to code along with me, because it'll help you understand better your coding basically. So you can go here, try it yourself, do many things with it. This is an example of an input. You can see the input tag I taught you guys in the name and everything, although they don't use the label, which is as I already consider bad practice. They should use label. So if you run this, I'll type my name or whatever, just play along with it, try to understand the different syntax of HTML. And I think with that, I can close this video as completed. And we've covered quite a lot. We talked about label tags. We talked about type text, which is used to prompt text input. We talked about the radio input type. We talked about checkbox. We talked about select. We talked about text area. And finally, we talked about date. And there's so many more. There's even color. Really crazy, right? HTML5 is a beautiful, beautiful framework that you can use to create and design the web. It's the only framework basically. So, well, I think I should just end this video so it doesn't get too long. And with that, I can be able to move on to other topics. I'll just brush a little bit on more extras of HTML in the next video before I go down to CSS, the really fun part of web development. So this is the end of the video. If you liked this video, please hit the like button or subscribe, either you want to do, and all the good YouTube stuff. Thank you very much. Goodbye.